You are listening to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all the latest news, Overwatch League results, and mishaps in Overwatch. Here are your hosts, Totemly Drunk and Edinar.
What is up, guys, and welcome back to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all things Overwatch. I am your host, Totemly Drunk, and tonight on episode 137, we'll be discussing the latest in Overwatch esports, see what's buzzing in this week's hot community topics, and preview this season of Contenders North America now that it is officially underway as of yesterday, which would be Tuesday. So before we can get into the news and introduce you to my co-host, I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who is in and out with us on Twitch for our live show. And, as always, thank all of our repeat listeners. Joining me again, as always, is my co-host, Edinar. And Edinar, we are nearing that deadline day for a lot of Overwatch League teams. There's still quite a bit of unknowns out there, and, it's almost as if we're in the middle of an esports mystery. Because that's also today, which is probably just going to be a complete letdown, because it's probably just that Denver thing that I linked you for an arena that Nerd Street Gamers is doing, all that good stuff. But, sir, how are you doing tonight?
I am doing good. I'm glad NA Contenders is back. It gives me more time to watch like professional Overwatch in a time frame that I can actually watch it in. And not be like, okay, do I have to set my alarm for 3 a.m. to watch, EU, Korea, Australia, all that stuff. So starting to see some familiar faces in Contenders, which is always nice. Actual Overwatch play is super fun to me right now, mainly because I refuse to play GOATs. And overall, a good time. I leave Sunday. I'm going to Vegas for a few days.
Nice.
This Sunday, so that will be a lot of fun and shenanigans. I'm hopefully going to swing by the esports arena, or they renamed it like the Razor.
Did they really?
Yeah, it's sponsored now.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, like it got like, it's kind of like if you think like an NBA arena, it has like a sponsorship name. So hopefully you're gonna swing up there. So, but how has your week been? You've been busy.
It's been pretty hectic. So basically, this week, I was tweeting about wanting to expand what we cover in regards to content, primarily with Overwatch Recall, because, that kind of started as, a podcast directory, and then we turned it into a way to interview, content creators. But at the time, it was, specifically in regards to Overwatch podcasts. So earlier this week, a couple days ago, I just kind of expanded the people that I'm looking to interview to really any content creator that revolves around Overwatch. So since then, I've had a phone that has been blowing up for 3 days. That tweet in itself has I honestly haven't checked lately, but last I saw it was 18,000 impressions. I've got a lot of people just messaging me, whether it was through DMs or through the actual tweet, and it just kind of blew up, which completely caught me off guard. So I've been scrambling, trying to get back to various content creators, both big and small, and just try to work out scheduling for interviews. I know I have 2 lined up for this week. I'll probably try to knock out 3 or 4 a week for the foreseeable future. But I was just completely caught off guard, and it's as I said, it's times like that where I almost wish that we had a social media manager, because it was overwhelming, the amount of response we got from the community. So I'm pretty thankful about that. So we should have some really good interviews lined up here for the upcoming weeks, and it's kind of put me in a spot now where it's well, do I not do bi-weekly releases like I had been doing in the past? Now I might even be looking at something a little bit more daily, maybe not Monday through Friday daily, but more like maybe every other day, maybe twice a week. I don't know. I gotta figure that out. But I am interviewing one of the hosts from On the Flink, which is another competitive Overwatch podcast. I will be interviewing one of the South American contenders, casters, over the weekend, which I'm pretty excited about because this will kind of like tie into something that we'll talk about later. We actually have some South American representation in contenders in North America as of yesterday from the Uprising Academy, which I'm really happy to see. And it is from, only the most dominant South American team that's just been completely causing havoc season after season in contenders. But it's been a blast. And of course, been balanced in playing Overwatch and Pokemon, so there is that too. So a lot of things happening in such a short amount of time, and we got some pretty exciting things on the horizon, so I'm looking forward to it and just diving right in. So let's jump into the news from this past week, and let's talk about everyone's favorite hero, Bob. Bob has hit competitive play after he was initially released on November 13th, and we are, after this 2-week period where, it gives people, a little bit of time to get used to the new hero and his companion, Ash, before seeing him play in competitive. And, really, you and I have kind of, talked about how Ash and Bob work in their current iteration and kind of, how it is probably not going to impact the current meta that we are in, which is the triple tank, triple support, which in itself has seen a little bit of variations, which we will talk about here, in just a little bit. But I have just one question for you, Ed, in regards to this hero. Will Bob do something?
Bob will do a lot of things. Bob is the part of her kit that is probably the hardest to deal with. And the hardest part, most comp games will actually, because the way you see it now is Bob gets sent in and then everyone panics and doesn't know how to handle Bob. So most of the time, everyone turns to deal with Bob, and then the rest of the other team is like, all right, well, all your backs are to us. We're just going to, we're going to destroy you. I was playing with Spider earlier.
Big mistake.
Hey, it actually went well. And what happened is I was on Anna, he was on Ash, and we had a McCree. And the McCree actually did something like high IQ, maybe. Might have just been luck. But so Spider threw Bob in. I nanoed Bob, and I highly encourage people to nano Bob because he gets a lot of kills. So everyone turned to deal with Bob. McCree ults 5k. I think it was a 4 or 5k because they all had their backs turned and not paying attention to anything else other than Bob. So people are not dealing with Bob or don't know how to deal with Bob, and they panic. I think once people will learn to deal with Bob more, easier, it's kind of like the Bastion problem. Bastion, a lot of people, when you aren't expecting it, a lot of people don't know how to deal with Bastion. But then once you think about it, you're like, okay, this is what you have to do. Bastion's not a problem. So I kind of see Bob going down that route as well. Once people figure out how to deal with Bob, I don't think Bob's going to be that big of an issue. Now, will he be ineffective? No. It's a 7th character on the field for you. It's still going to be good, just not as dominant as it seems to be now. The other part of her kit that I thought I underestimated myself was her dynamite. The amount of damage and disruption that the dynamite actually incurs is higher than I thought, because not only does it, if it hits people, it leaves the burn on them, the initial damage. It's almost a zoning tool. You throw it into the middle of a pile, people, rightfully so, scatter away from it because they don't want to take that damage, and then they don't want to take the burning because the burning does a lot of damage. So I think if Goats changes with the Baguette and the Doomfist nerfs, I think she could have a spot, but with Goats being so prevalent, I don't know if we'll see her that much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and where I play in Gold and stuff like that, there's no Goats comp.
Right.
There's hardly 2 tanks, 1 support comes. Like, that just doesn't happen. But so I'll see a lot of Ashe, but like higher end and in pro play and stuff like that. So you were shaking your head. You don't think the Brig nerfs and the Doomfist nerfs will bring at least a reduction in Goats?
No, I don't, just because it does make that comp even tankier, and it's just giving you more sustain when it comes to your survivability. But to bring it back to Ashe, I have been using a dynamite more, not so much as like throwing it straight in front of me. I've been using it kind of like the old school McCree flashbang to the Reinhardt methodology, where I'm throwing it higher. That way, it's less likely to get sucked up by the D.Va defense matrix. Because really, like, D.Va is like the one character that's really like having the biggest impact against you, unless like you're just in an Ashe versus Widow situation where you're probably never going to win that just due to the sightlines. And just the overall range between the two weapons. But all in all, like, Ashe is that hit scan type role, so she is kind of similar, kind of like mid-range, more close to, probably Hanzo, just due to a little bit more of her mobility in her toolkit, but how do you see him play as opposed to like a soldier or a widow? Like in what situations do you feel like she'd be more viable compared to some of her counterparts?
Well, Widow will always be viable if you're not playing against Goats. Like, I'm for the sake of the Ashe argument, I'm taking Goats out of it because hit scan, DPS in general are just not truly that viable outside of Sombra, Doomfist, Fair. Against Goats. So take that out of the equation. You're not getting rid of Widowmaker. One, everyone loves Widowmaker. Like you said, the 1v1 Ashe versus Widowmaker, Widowmaker is going to win that more often than not. Because the sightline, like you said, the longer range, could scope in, stuff like that. So I don't think she'll replace Widowmaker, but I think she could very easily replace Hanzo McCree Soldier. As like the go-to hit scan, because she can easily take out a Pharah up in the sky. Soldier has speed but can't get to verticality at all.
Right.
So and neither can McCree. So she has that advantage over them. That she can, rain down. She has the dynamite, which is a burn, which is a zoning tool / annoyance. I think her ult is more effective than Soldier's and McCree's, just because McCree's ult is garbage, because you can avoid it. It takes so long to ramp up, you can just avoid it. And Soldier's ult is okay, but it's nothing to write home about. So it really comes down to Hanzo or Ashe in my mind, and I think Ashe offers more than Hanzo does at this point, because while Hanzo is good at shield breaking, Ashe isn't too bad herself, but she can also do stuff to get around the shield. Like you said, like with the McCree flashbang, she can throw the dynamite over the shield and rain fire dynamite on top of people. And it's one of those things where she's not as good as everyone. Like, she doesn't push out the same amount of damage as a Hanzo, but she puts out more utility than Hanzo.
Yeah, and what's interesting too, like when you compare Ashe and Hanzo, is I feel like Hanzo might be in a better position to put pressure on someone just due to how the Storm Arrows is designed. But what Ashe offers is just like this different type of rhythm to her shots, just because she does have that quick load mechanic. So it's kind of bringing like a kind of a more unpredictable approach to a hero, and just how they're actually spreading out their shots in between. So that's another thing to take note of too, because at least with Hanzo, you have more of an idea of, just a steady flow of the quiver with the bow.
Yeah, and one thing I will say is Ash is good at protecting the backline. And that's something, McCree's pretty good at defending the backline, protecting your Zen and your Ana mainly, because McCree can flashbang kill, while Ash can knock them back and get them out of there, give your healers a chance to get away. That's not something Hanzo can do, and that's not something Hanzo's meant to do. Hanzo's not supposed to be a backline supporter or anything like that, but Ash is good enough for being far back with the support, being scoped in, as she is up front. So I don't know. I prefer her. I think she's going to be a middle to upper tier DPS pick going forward. Yeah, I love playing her, but I will not play her in comp.
As long as there's a diva around, like, I probably won't be playing her in comp. Maybe in the lower tiers, I'll definitely be picking her up more, just because I feel like you'd get a lot more usage out of your dynamite and the burn damage overall. But moving on, we do have some merchandise updates. And one of these is a GameStop exclusive. But before we can talk about that, let's talk a little bit about this Hasbro and like Overwatch partnership, because they are adding even more to that outside of Nerf. So we are getting a new set of action figures that is going to be released in the spring of 2019. Which is what they're calling the Overwatch Ultimates series. So kind of like the Ultimate hoodies that Jinx has been putting out. And, this is being released by Hasbro. These figures are not available to pre-order yet, which is like one of the first times where like they've been hyping up merchandise and then like, oh yeah, you can't buy it yet. So that kind of threw me off guard, because normally like as soon as they announce something, oh hey, you can pre-order it now, and then it'll ship like, I don't know, 10 months later, kind of like the Mercy statue.
You forgot you ordered it.
Like, I knew it was coming, but it's like, it got to the point where it's just like, when does this come out? Like, I feel like I've been waiting in eternity. But getting back to this action figure, the first one is in fact Mercy. Go figure.
Weird.
So yeah, crazy. Like only one of the poster childs of the game. And the action figure is 6 inches tall. And Mercy is wearing her standard outfit. She is equipped with her staff. She has her open Valkyrie wings. And, this is the only one that they have announced so far with this line. But that being said, Edenar, you and I have been kind of like on the fence with a lot of the merch. Especially, maybe more so on the price points of the merchandise.
Yes.
So, where do you think this is going to fit price range-wise? Is this going to be something that's maybe more in line with, like, the Nendoroids? Is it going to be, maybe these are going to be really detailed and it might be a step above that? What are you thinking for these?
I mean, if Hasbro's releasing them as, like, action figures, and that's really what this is, 6-inch tall action figure. I can't see it being over $29.99. I really can't, because action figures, when you release action figures, yes, people are aged by them, but action figures and stuff like that aren't meant for us. They're meant for kids. They are.
Right.
Like, action figures just are. And a parent is not going to buy a $35, $40 action figure for their kid. So Hasbro is one of those companies that probably will make it a little bit on the cheaper end, but more high quality than your run-of-the-mill action figure. So we'll see the Blizzard and Overwatch quality that we're used to, just at a lower price than what we're used to. At least that's what I'm hoping for. Now, I'm not going to hold my breath on it, and I could 100% see them releasing this thing for over $40.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to go with $29.99.
I think that's a safe bet. I feel like it's gonna be in that $24.99 to $29.99 range. Because that's very comparable to some of the other figures that Hasbro has released in the past. And this probably isn't gonna be something I'm gonna buy. But that also could be dependent on if they have heroes involved with this line that maybe aren't necessarily released in some of their other lines. Primarily like the Nendoroids, because that would probably be the best thing, like scale-wise to compare it to, and probably price point-wise too. So in regards to the action figures, is there anyone in particular that you would want to go out and actually purchase?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Maybe a Junkrat Roadhog one, because they always go toys. They go hand in hand. Maybe that one. Maybe Diva. Diva, I could see. Just trying to think. Don't like really any of the DPS. Yeah, I can't. I mean, the next ones they're going to release are Tracer and Winston. That's just kind of how things go. They may release Widowmaker or Reaper, but it's going to be a while before they release the non-face of the game type characters like Roadhog, like Junkrat, But I think Junkrat and Roadhog would be my top two. What about you? Like you're a big Mercy person, but you said you're not gonna get this one.
Well, I'm on the fence about it. I really want to see the quality of these. But I mean, I already have the Mercy statue. I've already splurged on a big Mercy piece, so it's kind of harder for me to justify spending additional money on this hero when I got the statue. But if they release a fairer one, I am all over it. But it's only a matter of time before you have a family and the little boy of the family is gonna be getting these action figures, and then you're gonna have I don't know, Junkrat just taking over the Barbie's dream house or something. Just completely destroying it. It's gonna happen.
Yeah,
it's
little grenades getting lobbed in there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, see, that's what we like to see. The one I really hope they never do, because I honestly think it would be just a crappy action figure. Hammond. It's just a ball. They're giving you a decorated ball. That's all it is.
I feel like it would be an awesome decoration.
Yeah, if they came out with Christmas ornaments, Hammond would be a great one. But as a toy, no, Hammond would not be a good one. Just saying.
Yeah, I can't imagine in many instances where he would really kind of fit into that type of work. I don't know. It's a weird one to kind of picture. Unless they only do the hamster part of Hammond and not the mech, because I don't know how exactly that would work. But
you could do the mech with just his head popping out, but then that's just weird. Yeah, no.
I agree 100%. But what's not weird is we are seeing an expansion of even more Winter Wonderland gear. So we saw some of the new stuff. I think it was with the Jinx line, or maybe it was a Blizzard store. But anyway, Winter Wonderland is right around the corner. We don't know when the start date is. We know it's soon. I mean, December's not that far off. But
it started last year on December 12th. I looked today.
Okay. So it's probably going to be a week or two. At least. But GameStop is going to be getting some exclusive merchandise for Winter Wonderland in the form of Funko Pops. So this isn't necessarily just a Funko Pop, because it is more of a Funko box. So you're going to get 2 Funko Pops, a keychain, and 1 of 2 stock-ins. So the Funko Pops that are being released at GameStop are of May and Tracer in their Merry and Jingle skins, respectively. You also get a Snowball keychain, which is included with a large red bow. And then you also get a stocking which features either May or Tracer in their respective Christmas skins, and these are being released on December 3rd for $29.99. So as soon as I saw this, I added right at Spider. Spider, did you see this? And I'm sure he's gonna buy it, and then he'll just buy the other stocking, off of someone. Or, who knows? Maybe he'll just keep buying the box until he gets both of them, or he'll just ask if he could have the other one. I don't know. But, it's just more for him to add to his collection. And, for me, like, I know you and I are kind of in the same boat. We really don't collect Funko Pops, so this isn't going to be something that I'm going to go out and get. For me, anyway. But, like, this is going to be a pretty good Christmas gift overall because my nephew and niece do collect the Funko Pops. They do play Overwatch. And, I'm sure that they would get a kick out of these, especially since you get, like, bonus items for free, essentially. Because you're basically, like, only paying for the Funko Pops with this box.
Yeah, no, and like you said, we're both not huge Funko Pop people, but I am... I am a giant Christmas fan. I have stated this numerous times on the podcast. I love me some Christmas. So this is actually something I'm probably going to order. Just because it's Overwatch, my favorite game, and my favorite time of year combined together. So, and I actually like these Funko Pops. And I do like the keychain, stockings. I don't know what I'd do with the stockings, but it'd be cool to have. Maybe if I get the other one that Spider doesn't have, I'll just ship it to him.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
In the Christmas spirit. But no, like, this is a perfect present. Like, perfect. It's in that, $20 to $30 range where it's like, okay, I want to get them something, but I don't want to go crazy on them. I'll get them this. Like, it's the perfect Christmas present. So I can imagine GameStop selling quite a few of these.
Yeah, and after, like, the Halloween event, like, we were talking about, like, is this a sign that they are going to be expanding on the event merchandise? And sure enough, we keep seeing more and more stuff popping up, which I am happy to see. Mm-hmm. What I'm not happy to see, as I segue to the hot community topics, is the fact that if you've watched any contenders, literally any, regardless of what region, right? Because they're all on the same patch, you've probably noticed, there's a certain comp being ran time and time again, right? Yeah? And that is...
Time and time again is an understatement.
In every game, guys, pretty much. And that is triple tank, triple support. People are running goats. And I know this is much to your dismay, Ed, because you were not a fan. You've stated that multiple times. But what we have seen is these very small tweaks to the triple tank, triple support composition just in the first week of contenders alone. Now, that being said, we have seen some teams run, like, Sombra Pharah to try to anti-goats, which hasn't really worked all that well so far through the regions, but I do find it interesting that we are starting to see, like, newer flavors added to this composition. So, for example, we've seen instances where teams have been running Winston over Reinhardt. That has been kind of like more popular in Contenders Korea. We've seen instances where Zenyatta has been chosen over Moira, which haven't that Discord orb has been helping drop the Reinhardt's quick, which a lot of these goats v goats match kind of like are determined by which Reinhardt falls first, because then it just kind of spirals out of control at that point. And then the more interested one is the Snoats composition, which saw D.Va getting subbed out of triple tank, triple support in favor of something that isn't a tank or a support, that being Mei. Like, what is going on? That one to me has been the most interesting one, and I am shocked that it has worked so well, just because, like, you're going up against a D.Va on the other side, and you're essentially adding another type of projectile, which could get soaked by the defense matrix, because, you can eat the blizzard as it's, getting thrown out, but I need to know, have the variations of this composition that you're not really a fan of skewered your view at all on the viewing experience of Contenders?
That's a big fat no. Um, like what we're seeing, so like you said, the Winston, or what they have called dive goats, is basically what we've been seeing a lot in Korea, and we're starting to see it a fair amount in NA. When we go over the Atlanta Mayhem, there's actually quite a few fights where they ran dive goats. The Zen for the Moira is quite prevalent actually in NA right now, and I like that over the Moira one, just because I'm not a big Moira fan.
Well, it's not only that, Ed, but it's the fact that when you have Moira in that composition, it also prolongs the fight that much longer.
And it's just, and I'm sorry, Moira mains who are high up there. Moira does not take that much skill. Like, truly, like, she's the only reason she doesn't get more crap is because there's Baguette. And because, like, what do? You right click, left click for healing damage, and you throw orbs out there. That's it. Like, just know what orb to throw and to left or right click. That's all you need to do, and you could probably ride her all the way up to platinum. So Zen is just a little bit more skill oriented, and has, I think it was that Apply? Apply really showed to us that a Zen can do some damage. Because for Fusion University, he really kind of went off.
That's Alarm.
Alarm. Apply was on the other team.
He's the DPS player too.
He's the DPS player too. But
Alarm is technically a DPS player because he
Alarm,
frags.
yes. But it's just, I'm like, oh, Apply, Alarm. I'm like, I just watched all these matches twice in a row, and the names kind of go together, and then you have Fusion playing against Fusion, and
Fusion's against Fusion, yeah.
It was like when IDDQD went up against IDDQD, the team. It's confusing to me, but you see a lot more skill from Zen players than you really do from Moira players, and it shows. So I prefer that. The main one I still don't get, because it just, to me, it's so easily counterable. Like, all you need to do is have somebody on higher ground, and they can't deal with it. Like, you don't have a diva who can go chase a Pharah or go chase, a soldier or somebody like that who has high ground. I don't get how that works. Like, if they have a Pharah, there's nothing you can really do except right click with Mei towards Pharah. It's not something like, if you don't have diva, you can be so easily counterable, but yet it works, and it baffles me on how it actually works. I don't see it catching fire in the Overwatch League. At least I hope not. So I don't know. Did any of this change your mind?
Like, I feel like at the core, a lot of the gameplay is still going to be the same, no matter what iteration it is. But it has kind of been more. I don't want to say it's more of like a chess move, but it's just an alternative, right? So a lot of times we're seeing Winston on the maps that do have that high ground that you're talking about. So they're able to get, some additional poke damage by, working on the different levels. If you need something that's more static, you're obviously running Reinhardt in that situation. For the most part, it has been Zenyatta, in a lot of cases, over the other flex supports. And as I mentioned, a lot of that is just due to the orb and the amount of extra pressure that you can get on the shields. But, the main one has been, the most curious one, because, if you're not getting the value out of your ice wall, it's really hard to kind of justify that taking that diva spot in that lineup. So, I feel like we need to see the May iteration a little bit more in play to really judge it, just because we haven't really seen it as often as these other ones. But like, it's definitely been the one that has piqued my interest the most, just because as someone that has played Diva for so long and knowing how powerful Diva is, especially in triple tank, triple support, to not see a Diva in the game is just confusing to me. Like, you're so used to it in pretty much every game. And which reminds me, basically, if they nerf Diva, I mean, that's really going to be one of the death knells of triple tank, triple support, unless they just like completely like burn the armor to the ground on Rally and just the armor overall that Brigitte provides.
Yeah, and well, the Spider actually made a good point on one way to kind of fix goats without nerfing everyone to the ground, or nerfing certain things to the ground, is melee and stuff like that can't go through shields. That simple change right there would do wonders. Now, I don't get why any melee can go through shields, but they can, and it baffles me. Like, a bullet can't go through a shield, but a hammer swing can. I don't get it. But, like, just the physics of it just doesn't make sense. But something like, it's just as simple as that could get rid of goats. They could go the route of Diva, nerfing Diva, which I personally would not mind, just because Diva has, as much as people complain about overpowered characters, it was Mercy, then Hanzo, now Baguette, and Sombra, Doomfist. What's the one constant we've had in basically every meta we've ever had? It's Diva. Like, Diva has, like you said, has always been in competitive. And, you know, kind of all the metas revolve sort of around Diva. Like, you have Dive. You can't do Dive without Diva. Like, you need Winston Diva. Those are the two main things to get with Dive. Goat. You need Diva for goats. Like, it's just weird to me that of all these changes, even though some of them might not have been needed, like the Doomfist changes, I don't think were needed. Like, and we see that now in contenders. It's like the changes aren't even live and nobody's playing Doomfist to counter goats. Like, we're just not seeing it. I mean, I don't get why, but the pros know better than I do. But like, changing Diva would do wonders for the overall game. And now, if there ever comes a ban system, like Jane had this tournament this past week where they had the ban system. If they had a ban system, the first pick I would ban would be Diva. Because then what does the team do?
Right, it changes up your strat and team comp altogether.
Yeah, it's, you basically are like, okay, everything you're used to, you can't do now because Diva's not available. So, and it's things like that that probably prevents them from doing hero bans, because it would just be the same bans over and over again. And then they'd have to nerf and buff pretty severely to switch that around. Well, maybe they should get ahead of the game and nerf Diva a little. So, that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I feel like that would definitely send a lot of people reeling, especially if they nerf Diva, just because, you know, there has been that issue of Diva being 2 characters, and, you know, one minor tweak could greatly offset the balance of the universe and the game in itself, for that matter. And, you know, it would definitely rattle a lot of people. Kind of like what happened after the Gladiators kind of shell-shocked the community with one of their tweets late this afternoon.
Your segues are on point today.
So, okay,
I applaud you.
So like 3-4 hours ago, I lose track of time, guys. I'm sorry. It was somewhere within that window. They sent out this tweet, this very ominous tweet that they're like, okay, but we're basically just saying goodbye to our Finnish support line duo of Big Goose and Shaz, and then like the internet exploded. You know, you can pull up the tweet, you can go through all of the Overwatch personalities, the players, the coaches, and pretty much every single one of them is either WTF, question mark, or just one or the other. Sometimes both. And, you know, the Reddit got blown up on competitive Overwatch. The podcast discords were blowing up. And, you know, we just kind of let it stew for like 30 minutes, right? Everyone was pissed off. Everyone was calling for the heads of the gladiators. Everyone was just like, why would you get rid of what was your most consistent line in the inaugural season? And then something else happened, Ed. They basically said, because, you know, now it's a trio, they signed another Finnish support player who also comes from Team Giganti, which was the team that Big Goose and Shaz came from, and that is none other than Rippa. And, you know, if you thought that they were going to just stop at one bamboozle, they got us again.
They debated the hell out of everyone. Like, there was, so you had mentioned something in Discord just before they posted that, you know, like, before they said, you know, oh no, it's the trio. And a couple people on Reddit, but it was just more like, hey, I'm trying to think of ways that the gladiators are full of crap right now.
Right.
Just going to throw out ideas, hoping I'm right, because this is insane. Turned out to be right. But I think everyone was ready. Other players and analysts included were ready to get their pitchforks out and go straight at the gladiators. Be like, okay, you better have traded them for two way better support somehow, some way. I think the only way is, like we were talking, is like, well, maybe they're just trying to get more Korean. I'm like, but then you have Hydration and Sureform. Like, you have 4 Korean players and a Canadian and American. If you're not going full Korean, you don't trade away Big Goose and, you know, Shaz. Like, or Shaz. And it's just one of those things where when they sent it out, like, I can just picture, I forgot her name, but she's in charge of the social media for the gladiators. She was,
Annalyn.
Annalyn. I could just see her sitting by the phone. Waiting to send out
just
that other one,
just scrolling through her Twitter feed, basically.
Like, it's kind of one of those, she's like, do I let it go on any longer and let that implode, or I don't know. And then she hits send, and it's just like, oh, damn you. You got every single person in Overwatch.
It was
good. It was good.
It was a situation where, if you're a Gladiators fan, they have this heavy sigh of relief, and then they just tweet right back at him. Can't do that to us. Like, they already went through enough with the reverse sweeps in Season 1, and then they go out and basically, like, rip their heart out of their chests and just stomp on them for 30 consecutive minutes before, you know, trying to piece it back together again and then putting it back in. That doesn't work.
It was... Oh, that would have been mutiny. I feel they would have been booed the first game they played in the Overwatch arena. But, man, mad props. It was good. Like, at first, it was like, oh, you're so dirty. And then you're like, oh, you're impressive.
Which is saying something, because lately there's been a lot of talk about how social media has been handled by certain teams. So for them to kind of like do this after the aftermath of what was Toronto esports, just kind of like added another layer to it, which really brought it home. But getting back to the new support player, you know, as I mentioned, Rippa was on Team Giganti. And he is a flex support player, so he does play Zenyatta, he plays Moira, and you know that means all support players on this roster did come from that same team over in Contenders Europe. And all in all, like, just mad props to the social media manager. Like, they got a lot of us, and I'm curious to see, like, how quickly this is going to blow over, or just how quickly this is still going to be on our minds, because I can see it going either way. Like, some people are probably going to just sit back for a while and just keep shaking their head just keep telling themselves, you bastards.
The thing is you know what this could do is it could bring a whole new level of all the teams trying to debate people.
Yeah.
Like, or I think Deathblow put her. He's like, did we just get defranned?
Mm-hmm.
Like, yep, we did. We just got defranned.
Yeah.
I could see other teams doing this too, and it just won't be the same
because it's already been done.
It's already been done, but I could see them doing it.
Yeah, and what I think what really nailed it for me is the fact that, look at all this attention that kind of got brought to their social media page for a sign-in. Or what was a sign-in, actually. Really, like, any other way. Like, we'll use, like, the Defiant announcement, for example, because they did announce some new players. Like, a lot of people are just like, okay, cool. Like, we finalized the roster. And then now it's just like there's more people talking. They're like, oh, now we got 3 fans. Oh, everyone's from the same, contenders team. But damn, they did so good, and I'm happy to see it. So props to trolling literally the entire world. That was fantastic. Please don't do that again. Our hearts can only take so much punishment.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, that was just one of many things that went down in the league. So let's see what else is going down inside the league. So first up, we do have a roster reveal, which was from the Guangzhou Charge. So this is a very mixed roster, and I have very mixed feelings about this particular team, just based off of the players that they have signed. Basically, they went on Twitter, they did their roster reveal, which was kind of like done like an NBA Jam-esque, styled introduction, basically very over the top. I wouldn't say it's entertaining, but like some of the player nicknames that they gave, I thought were pretty good. So on this roster, we have 4 members of Metabellum, which is a Contenders Korea team. Right now, if you're following Contenders Korea, there's also Meta Athena. These 2 teams are sister teams, part of Meta Gaming, and basically, like, these players got signed, and then they basically merged the 2 meta teams to form one for Contenders Korea. So from Metabellum, we have DPS player Happy, tank player Rio, and then they took the support duo of Wan J. Lee and Chara. We also have 2 Chinese players from LGD Gaming. You have DPS player Eileen and support player Only Wish. And then you also have 2 former Toronto esports, or ex-Toronto esports, however you want to say it. You have DPS player Nero, and also support player Shu. And then rounding out that roster, you have former British Hurricane DPS player Kib, who is coming off a pretty solid performance overall in the Overwatch World Cup from the United Kingdom team. So, with that being said, we already know that Hotba is on this team because he was traded from the Philadelphia Fusion. That gives this roster 4 support players, 4 DPS players, and only 2 tank players. Now, this is a very mixed roster. Mixed more so than some other teams, and right off the bat, I feel like that's a lot of reason to be concerned. You basically have people from 4 different parts of the world. You're gonna have a lot of different languages being thrown around. And, some of these players could definitely be considered question marks, as is kind of building around, like a quad of what would be one of these Korean teams that haven't really been to a championship or had deep runs in the playoffs. So overall, just based on first impressions, without seeing them play together, for me, it leaves a lot to be desired. But you do have some big names on this roster. Signing Eileen is absolutely massive. Eileen is one of the premier DPS players out of China. Happy is one of the better Widowmaker players out of Korea. Kib has been really good in a lot of flex DPS options when he was playing for the Hurricane and during the World Cup. But you also have some people that just maybe don't have the same amount of experience on LAN, like Nero. So all in all, I am very conflicted right now with this roster. And it's just I'm curious to see how these American and European and Chinese players are just going to adapt around this Korean core of this team. Like, I don't know how that's going to work as opposed to what has been traditionally kind of like the other way around.
I mean, my rebuttal to that is, remind me who won? It was Spitfire versus who in the championship game?
The Fusion.
Fusion, who is a combination of Korean, American. They started off with a Russian. I'm worried like you are, but I'm not as worried. Kind of becoming the norm. You're seeing less of the, well, none of the Chinese teams are going all Chinese, but only two. I think only two teams now are pure one nationality. I think just London and just New York are both just South Korean. I think Hatba is actually the key to all of this for working, because Hatba knows how to deal with the language barriers between Korean, American, like Korean and English and all that stuff from his time with the Fusion. And he can kind of be the go-between between people like Nero, Kib, and then all the South Korean players. The two that are probably kind of on the outside looking in as far as all that goes is the Only Wish and Eileen, which is unfortunate because Eileen is probably going to be their best player, but won't be able to communicate right away. So it's less of an issue because we've seen it, to me, because we've seen it done before. Mm-hmm. But like you said, none of the players on this team, while there's potential there, there's a lot of holes and there's a lot of weakness. I'm not a huge fan of their tank line. I was never a huge fan of Hatba, personally. I think you nailed it on the head that, you have Eileen and Kib and Happy are going to be a good DPS core. Nero will probably be the odd man out. Nero will be the odd man out, I think, in that whole situation. But I don't know. It's just, I guess I'm a fan of integrating different nationalities at a team, because you can practice your way out of the language barrier almost. Like, you can still communicate with each other without having to speak the same, language. And that has been proven that throughout Overwatch League, and you're starting to see teams kind of go toward who used to have, like, look at Florida Mayhem. Now, like, bad example from last year because they sucked. But like, Dallas Fuel, they sucked, but they all like kind of spoke one nationality, like all spoke English. They weren't all the same nationality, but they all spoke English. And then they bring in effect and, stuff like that. And they start to, bring in different language barriers, and it works for them for the most part. And, you have Shock, you have the Gladiators, you have the Valiant, you have the Fusion, the Uprising. Like, all these teams made it work. So I don't see this being a huge issue. I think the talent is what's the big issue with this team. I just don't think it's there.
Yeah, like, to me, like, if I'm putting, like, dollar signs on the roster, right? Like, this feels more of a team that might have gone the Boston route and maybe didn't pay top dollar for the contracts. So, maybe they're looking to, buy low, sell high in the future. Who knows? But that was not the only expansion team that had some announcements, because we do have some updates to the Chengdu Hunters, specifically in regards to their coach and stuff, because as of right now, they've still not made any player announcements. So, Chengdu have added Rui, who will serve as the team's head coach, with Ray Acton as the assistant coach for the team. So Rui was a head coach for the Shanghai Dragons for at least part of the first season in the Overwatch League. He had to leave the team due to some health issues. He was dealing with some neck arthritis, and that happened like before the start of Stage 4. And when he was gone, then it was Khan who had taken over, filling in as the team's head coach. Before that, pre-Overwatch League, Rui was a head coach of what was, without question, the best Chinese team in the scene at that time, that being Miraculous Youngster. The team that a lot of people were like, why isn't that the Shanghai Dragons? Part of it was age. Part of it was probably, management corruption, whatever. Dragons had a number of issues in the back end. But I'm glad to see that Rui is getting another opportunity to coach, and I'm glad that I don't know if like all of his health issues are past him, but at least he went back home to China. He got the help that he needed, and now he's back. Like that's fantastic. So this is a good opportunity for him to show what he can really do, because yes, the Dragons didn't have a great season. But they did win more maps when Rui was the head coach, as opposed to everyone else that had filled in on that role. And then you also have Ray, who was the head coach of Flash Wolves, who were, this is a Taiwanese team. They've been one of the top teams in the Pacific region. They won the Pacific Championship in Season 1. They finished as a runner-ups in Season 2. So this is a championship pedigree coach as well as your assistant coach. So, all in all, like, you have two coaches who coached two teams in different regions that basically stood the test of time when they were in their prime. So I'm curious to see how that sort of mentality is going to bleed into this new expansion team moving forward into Season 2.
Yeah, and it makes it hard to judge how they're going to be without knowing the actual team.
Mm-hmm.
They did tweet out a picture of the 9 players
right,
with pandas in front of their face. But, I mean, we just don't know who's going to be on the team. And I don't think there's really been any leaks on what the team is going to be, at least the full roster. Are they going to go all Chinese team? Are they going to go Korean Chinese? Are they going to go, any sort of combination?
Right. I will note, like, the rumors that we have heard, this, based off of the rumor mill, like, this is going to be a mixed roster. So I'll just throw out a couple of names that are rumored to be on the team. Nothing official. So, we've heard Late Yun, Beast Halo. We've heard, Silk Thread. I'm gonna pronounce this name, and I hate to do that, but it's like Yan Zhao. It's another one of the Chinese players. We've heard Yveltal, and a couple others, but like the tank line is looking pretty promising. But it does seem like this will be a mixed roster, for sure.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, they are with Ray showing championship pedigree and Ryu, I'm always going to pronounce it wrong, no matter what. He actually was, as I hate to put it this way, he was the best coach the Shanghai Dragons had. Like, when he was their coach, they did their best. Like, as far as, like, taking maps. Now, they didn't take many maps, but they took the most when he was the head coach. So it's one of those things, like, you have good coaching. Now you just need good coachable players, and they could be good. Like Beast Halo. I'm sorry, Beast Halo is whatever team he's on, he's going to be good. Mm-hmm. Silk Threat, good player. Saw a little bit of that last year. Like it's one of those things. The talent could be there, but good coaches trump talent. Dallas Fuel proves that. Like, they had the exact same team. They just brought in a better coach, and all of a sudden they make it to the Stage 4, championships or playoffs, when they were trash tier before that. So a good coach like this could do wonders for them. So, and especially to have both of these guys as coaches, it's kind of a good get for them. So I'm excited to see this roster. There are other rosters I'm probably more excited to see coming up. I think everyone kind of is, because we still have 3 teams. Yeah, it's 3 teams that have not announced really any roster.
Yeah, so basically, like, based on a rumor for Train Do, like, this is going to be a mini reunion of Miraculous Youngster in the Overwatch League. Now, that could be interesting, but you also have to remember, like, they also haven't really been together for quite some time as well. But I'll be excited to see if that happens or not, just due to the fact that they were one of the powerhouse teams in that region. But speaking of teams that we really don't know anything about, we have Vancouver. And, we know the deadline date to have the league minimum of 8 players is fast approaching. And as a matter of fact, it is on December 1st. Well, earlier today, Vancouver Overwatch League on their Twitter account actually posted a little video. So, in this video, we kind of got like some claw marks, we saw some colors. It's kind of like a green-blue. Not necessarily like Vancouver Canucks colors, they were actually a lot brighter. And on December 1st, they are doing some sort of unveiling. Now, I have heard that this is going to happen at the Vancouver Canucks game. It's going to be, I think, like, they even said, like, one of the bars that's at that arena, if I'm not mistaken. But, like, we heard, like, some, like, cat-like roar in the background. We saw the claw marks. And we do know that, there's a certain team that has been heavily linked to Vancouver. A certain pink and blue team. Mm-hmm. Not the Spark. Not the Spark. The actual.
Hey, what is their name?
The Finger Bangs.
The Finger Bangs. There you go.
So it's not Hanzhou. No, we're talking about Runaway. Now, it was not that long ago that the Runaway team mom, Flowervin, left the team in Korea to go someplace cold. I mean, it's pretty obvious. Like,
Canada's, so there has been some next level college football recruitment spying going on. So I'm starting pictures of runaway players in the Vancouver airport. Like, are people really like, oh my god, it's Runaways, they're at the baggage claim? Like, what? Like, what? You're Canada. Come on, you're supposed to be nicer. Like, you should be stalking Overwatch contenders players
so
in an airport.
Quick PSA, Canadians. Don't be so intrusive at the airport.
Yeah, silly Canadians.
But anyways, so let's say... So based off what we know, like, we're expecting some sort of reveal at the Canucks game on December 1st. How do you feel about that? Because, we've talked a little bit in the past about mainstream sports kind of I don't know if I should say dismay. Maybe like disapproval of esports. So how do you think, like, a hockey crowd would react to some sort of brand reveal for the Overwatch League? Would that go over well? Would it be met by boos? Could you hear a pin drop? Like, what are you expecting out of this reveal in regards to the people that are there?
So here's what's gonna happen. The people who go there for hockey are gonna boo them. That's guaranteed. The people who are there are smart will understand that the Overwatch League Overwatch League Finals gets more viewership than the Stanley Cup. So technically, Overwatch is more popular than hockey. I'm just stating facts.
I mean, there was like an article on Sports Business Journal how about Overwatch League is 3rd overall. I can't remember what the metric was. But it was up there.
Okay, so here's the thing. So with the Overwatch League Finals, had 10 million viewers, right? Great numbers. The Stanley Cup had 4. Maybe you, instead of going to an NHL game, you're going to an Overwatch League announcement that happens to have hockey there. But all kidding aside, traditional sports fans and traditional sports announcers tend to hate change and hate esports. I think Colin Cowherd's probably the worst of this, but we're starting to see that kind of come around and people to realize that esports is the next wave. I think that can be seen. Raucus and Golden Boy were on the field doing some like esports events at the Jets game. Like, so this is not out of the ordinary. And Sabayobi threw out the first pitch at a Mets game.
Right.
The Gladiators go to Dodgers games. Like, professional sports and esports are going to be intermingling, whether people like it or not, because it's good business, and they know the wave of the future. This is what Calgary is doing. Like, yeah, Calgary. I get all of Canada mixed.
Those are fighting words. You can't keep throwing random Canadian cities because everyone's just gonna start taking offense.
Like, Quebec's the redheaded stepchild. That's all I.
So the Canada. French Canadians.
Yeah, okay. The rest of Canada hate them. They're like the
the Scott Tittermans.
I was gonna go with like swamp people of Florida.
Oh,
of Canada. Okay. So, but they're gonna be booed, no matter what. Once people in the stands find out that it's for video game players, like. It's just going to happen. And it's going to be like this for probably the next 5-10 years until it becomes more mainstream. And it's slowly getting there. But, the owners of these franchises own traditional sports franchises. So they're going to try and get as much viewership for their esports teams by doing whatever they can. And this will do it. Like you said, you have name is actually going to the game.
Yeah, Melkari.
Not a hockey fan.
She's a Canadian. Not a real big fan of hockey. And I DM'd her back almost immediately, and I'm like, isn't that like against the rules as a Canadian?
It really kind of is. And but she cheer on, the announcements and all that stuff. And esports and Overwatch in particular is kind of at the forefront of all of this because it's on ESPN. It's on ESPN2. They're throwing out first pitches. They're doing all that. So it's kind of like we're the first ones on the firing line,
right?
As far as like from the traditional sports fans. So I'm very excited for it. I mean, if they did this, let's say, for instance, next year, they do this at a Chicago Blackhawks game. I would go to the Chicago Blackhawks game. I am not a hockey fan, but I'd go just for that. So it can only benefit everyone. Like, that's what people don't get. It benefits everyone. NHL, Overwatch League, hockey fans, esports fans. It benefits all 4 of them. So I get into fights about this way too much with my friend.
Some people just don't understand. But, not only do we have the Vancouver announcements imminent, but we do know that Toronto Defiant have finalized their roster. And they've added Asher and Roki to this team. So Asher is now one of 3 players on this Defiant roster that has Overwatch League experience. He played for the Gladiators last season, where he played hitscan for the team, which the majority of his playtime came at the beginning of the season. Roki was the main support, who was on the championship roster of X6 Gaming over in Contenders Korea. They had won Contenders Season 1 in that region. Then he would later go on to join Seven, another one of the Korean Contenders teams. And then that was when they were going through trials in Season 3. So this would put them at the league minimum of 8, all of which are from Korea. Full Korean expansion team. but they are
Oh, yeah.
they are only going to have 8 players. So what do they have as alternates? You know, they have an additional support player, they have an additional DPS player, and like when I look at this roster, you know, I can't help but feel like there's a bit of a redemption story here when it comes to these other Overwatch League players. You know, you got Neko, you got Envy, you got Asher, and to a great extent, you also have their coach Bishop, who, you know, at times has been getting a lot of flack as well. So like, this is a case where these players are just trying to prove the community wrong, like all the naysayers. So that's what I'm most invested in regards to like an overall storyline for the Defiant. But like I'm not gonna say like I'm completely blown away by some of the sign-ins, but I'm at least invested in how these players are going to do in what will be their second season in the Overwatch League.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, so I was wrong before when I listed off the all Korean teams. I completely forgot about the Defiant. It, like you said, the talent. I don't think the talent's there. Like they're middle of the pack team. They could squeak into the playoffs. They could miss the playoffs. I don't think they're going to be bottom. I don't think they're going to be top. They're middle of the road, which is just fine for a first year expansion team. That's kind of where you're trying to aim. Like your aim should be, I want to be just in like the 7 to 10, 12 range. Like that's kind of your sweet spot.
I thought the goal was to win one game, or just to not be last.
No. Yeah. So the goal right now should be the first Chinese team to win a game in the Overwatch League.
And if they have the finger bangs going up against the Dragons, that will for sure 100% happen.
Yes. No, it can't end in a tie.
No.
That'd be amazing though if it could, and that first game ends in a tie. But like you said, this is a redemption story. So you're seeing some of these, you know, the Asher, Neko, Envy, and you know, it's one of those things where you do want to see them come back and kind of be the fissure, like because fissure would back and play the Spitfire and just trolled the hell out of them. That was amazing. That was just amazing. Like oh, that I still remember the interview that he gave after the game, and it just this is what you want them to Usher to like come in and just pop off and destroy his old team. You want Envy to do that, you know. I want Bishop to succeed, but again, that's the story with this team. It's not that they're a good team. So, like I said, they're going to be a middle of the team. May squeak into the playoffs, probably won't. So, but they could surprise us and be the new Boston Uprising.
They could be. You never know. So, you know, not only do we have all that stuff going on in regards to the off-season, but we have Contenders North America Season 3 that just kicked off as of yesterday. So, Contenders North America games are played Tuesday nights and also Wednesday nights. Actually, some of the games are going on right now, even. But we did get quite a few updates in regards to some of these rosters, because, you know, there was a lot of uncertainty in regards to a couple of these teams. Maybe more so on Fusion University having a couple of pretty big-name players just not on the roster. But first, we have to talk about the real news. And that is, without question, the best not signed team, basically. A team that doesn't have an organization is now an academy team. That being our boys, LNL, last night's leftovers, will be representing Atlanta Academy. So, we do know that LNL already had connections with Atlanta Reign prior to this announcement. You know, they have their head coach, Sephi, assistant coach, Silence. Both were with LNL last season in Contenders. They also have in Layer, you know, one of the DPS players on Atlanta Reign, who was also on the LNL roster in Season 1 and Season 2 of Contenders. And they opened up their season against Mayhem Academy, which we'll dive a little bit deeper into here in just a bit. So, with this team, we have Sugar Free and Saucy as the DPS. That's assuming Sugar Free is not in Brigida jail.
Okay.
We have...
I wanted to add that caveat there.
We have the tank line of Gator and Hawk. And then the support line of Ajax and Dogman, if he doesn't die first. Right? Yeah. So, what 100%, if you guys have not listened to Overwatch League Network, fast forward to this specific spot when we talk about LNL, because I can't even put it in words. There was some whiskey involved in Slambo, and it made for some hilarious conversation in regards to some of these players on this roster, and I will just leave it at that. But it's definitely worth checking out. So we have Gator. We already knew he was on the Atlanta Reign. His inclusion on the Academy team confirms that he is in fact a two-way player. Saucy is joining Atlanta after playing for Second Wind. He helped Second Wind finish on top of Contenders Trials, but this is a player that does not have Contenders experience. Same with Hawk, who has seen play in on a number of different teams. He's played in a ton of big Tier 2 tournaments, whether it was Contenders Trials, Pit Championship, Beat Invitational, but he's another one of those players that hasn't really had that sort of experience. But I want to get your thoughts on, one of these teams that did not have an org, who essentially was one of the only non-org teams to defeat these established academy teams, even going as far as knocking one of them completely out of existence, to now be in an academy team. Like, how does that make you feel, like, as a fan of this team?
I mean, going in, we knew LNL was going to get picked up by somebody. It was kind of a no-brainer. And we had known that, or it was heavily hinted that LNL was going to be Atlanta's, contenders team. I'm happy for them. I like them. They're raw. The way they play together, you can see that you can tell they have never had like a professional organization, coaching, backing, and stuff like that. Just from their play style, they rely solely on their talent and less on strategy. I hate to put it that way. It's just it's their play style is a little more sloppy and could be very much refined. So it's very interesting to me to see them in the second half of NA contenders, to see once they get some more coaching and stuff like that, to see how they really shine. Like Gator, you said, is a two-way player, which good. We'll go into that when we break down there. Sugar Free. I mean, everyone knows our love of Sugar Free. Sugar Free is the best player in contenders. I'll stick by that any day right now, in NA contenders at least. I don't know about Korea. Just for the love of God, don't let DeFran mentor Sugar Free. That's all I ask. Don't let DeFran go anywhere near Sugar Free. That's legit all I ask, because Sugar Free is one of those bright spots in the Overwatch. It's kind of like if you watch streaming at all, Rhino. Like you see Rhino and like you hear him in games, and the pros love playing with him. He's just a fun person to be around, and I don't want Sugar Free to turn into one of these salty XQC pros, so I know we're a ways away. I think we're 4.5 years away from Sugar Free actually being able to play in the Overwatch League, which was a massive running joke throughout the entire match.
Yeah, he actually was getting younger as the games went on.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure by the end he was back in his mother's womb playing from there. Like he needs to go through birth again. But I really like this team, although there are a lot of flaws in this team. And we'll, like I said, we'll go through that when we break down the team, the match against the Mayhem.
So not only do you have this very beloved team that is now signed, you also have some pretty big changes coming to the team that is looking to three-peat as the contenders North American champions, that being Fusion University. So with this Season 3 roster, we have 3 new faces on the roster. So who is missing from this current lineup for Fusion Uni? Gone are Zachary, Who Are You, and Beast Halo. Those are 3 very big names.
And we have no idea where they're going.
Yeah, basically,
there's rumors.
There's rumors that Zachary is going to Dallas Fuel. We haven't heard anything about that in a while. Who Are You has been rumored to maybe be signing with Gen G, who is a Seoul Dynasty Academy team, which would make a lot of sense, because he was from Lunatic Kai. Beast Halo has been linked to one of the expansion teams, which we talked about earlier. So that leaves Elk and Alarm, the support duo. Elk, who's on a 2-way contract, and then Bernard, who is their off-tank player. And then joining them, we have Snillo, who is also on a 2-way contract now. He did play on the Fusion main roster in Season 1. But then, you have Carpe and EQO, that you didn't really get to see a lot of play of Snillo because of that.
No.
And then we have Chainsick and Neist. And he has a weird name, and I know that's how it's pronounced, but, it's N-A first. I don't know why it's pronounced that way, but whatever. It's nice. So, you have Chainsick, who played for Kondu Panthera. He had played during the group stages in Contenders Career Season 2, but he did not see any play time in the playoffs and was released from that org back in September. Neist was one of the DPS players on Metabellum, before he joined Fusion University. And then we also have a coach change, so joining the team is Spazzo, who will serve as the head coach, and he'll take over for... I honestly don't know how to pronounce their head coach's name. I feel so terrible. I don't know if it's Pagian or Pagian, but he's been linked to be the head coach for Vancouver and their Overwatch League team, which would be a tremendous sign. And we've seen, we've seen how good Arrow's been. I mean, the Fusion Uni coaching staff was absolutely stacked. So, we were a little curious about whether or not Elk would be playing in Contenders this season. In fact, he is. We also got Snillo getting to see some more playtime, so, he's not going to be feeling the burnout if he's competing in the Overwatch League. I just want to get your initial reactions in regards to just how the new additions to this team did, at least in this opening series. You don't have to go deep dive into it just because we will be doing a little bit more analysis, but what did you think of this new looking Fusion University roster?
So I guess the big thing is everyone thought with the loss of Who Are You, Zachary, Beast, Halo, that it spelled the downfall for Fusion University. And I thought they'd definitely take a step back. But they didn't. In my mind, they're playing just as good as they were. The replacements they got, Chainsick and Nest and Snillo, and those 3 added to this team replace the people who left just fine, especially in this meta. Snillo did very well going on Baguette. Bernard, we know we're getting in Bernard Elk. We saw those 3 dominate last year, and they're dominating the same way now. So I don't see Fusion University really taking that step back.
Right.
And this stage. Now, are they unbeatable? Last year, they were kind of unbeatable. Just with the people they had on their team. It was just insane.
Well, spoilers. They have not lost a game yet.
Yes.
Since this team has been a team in any iteration.
Yeah. So I think they're beatable. I don't think they're as good as they were last year. They're a step below, but they're a step below from last year. is still probably the best in NA contenders. They will have some boss Uprising Academy, Atlanta are probably, and maybe Gladiators Legion, although lost. Like those teams can really compete against them, and then there's XL2, but XL2 lost a fair amount of people too.
They also have some pretty potent signings as well, though.
Exactly. I was gonna say, they picked up some decent players, but no, Fusion University is probably still the team to beat. And I mean, I feel you probably agree with me on that. They're the team to beat.
Yeah, them and XL2 to me are still the top two teams. But I feel like the gap between them this season is going to be a lot closer than what was that 4-0 shellacking that Fusion University gave XL2 in the grand finals last season. But, I know we're starting to run a little bit long on time, and we still need to talk about the game between Mayhem Academy and Atlanta Academy. So just real quick, Energy did make an addition to their roster as well as coach and staff. They added DPS player Izire ahead of Contenders, and he played for Second Wind, and he helped them qualify for the new season of Contenders. This is a player that has Trials experience, but this will also be his first time playing in Contenders. So, a lot of big opportunities for players in this current season of Contenders, which is great to see. They also picked up Moby Dick as the head coach. He had coached Foxes prior, which is one of the Korean Contenders teams. Foxes isn't in Contenders anymore, but they were in prior seasons. And they also signed Face, who head coach Sydney Drop Bears, which I'm really excited to see because, when you think of Contenders Australia, Sydney Drop Bears, they kind of won back-to-back championships, so, they're a pretty good team overall.
Yeah, they're decent.
Not bad, That being said, though, there are also kind of multiple back-to-back champions in different regions as well, but still, I'm happy to see more representation from some of these other regions, which we'll kind of talk about a little bit later on, because there is a little bit more presence of a certain region in Contenders North America, which I'm excited to see. But, we talked about XL2, and they did add some new firepower. So, Goner, Nene, and Flower, we've already touched up on that in prior episodes. And they have bolstered their roster by adding a former Overwatch League player in Logix. Logix having played for Florida Mayhem in Overwatch League Season 1. So, he is the third former Overwatch League player to join XL2. He follows Tizzy and Uhail. And they signed Jer, who played for Sky Foxes in last season of Contenders. And, he's been a pro, for as long as I can remember, dating back to 2016. He's been on a number of rosters. But they also have a new head coach, Wiz, who... This is his first foray into Overwatch coaching. He was the coach in Heroes of the Storm in the past. And then Adam, who was the main support for XL2, has transitioned into a manager role on this team following his retirement. Which, it definitely... Like, seeing that, seeing, like, one of the Overwatch OGs retire was, definitely a sad moment. Because this has been a player that I've really followed, dating all the way back to closed beta. Like, it's been that long. So... this isn't, like, the first time, like, we've seen a new coach transition into Overwatch, because, that's also been the same case for Seoul Dynasty's Academy team, but, XL2, they were clearly the second-best team last season. What do you think they are this season, knowing that they lost a pretty good amount of firepower on that DPS line? But then again, Logix popped off pretty well for the Mayhem, but then Saya player happened, and you can't really fault him for that.
Yeah, no, like, I'm not saying Logix is on the same playing field as, Flower, and, that it's, but he's probably the best replacement they could have gotten. Like, with Manga 2 was basically almost starting almost every as DPS anyway with them for XL2. So, I don't think they took much of a downgrade on Mangachu and Logix. I don't know much about their support players, Goliath and Jur. I'll flat out say that. Um, but I mean, their tank line with Tizzy and Huyal and yeah, Adam now coaching it. I think they're probably the number 2 team in contenders for NA. I think the way Uprising Academy played, it's I want to say it's almost between those 2 teams right now to be the second best team in contenders NA, with XL2 probably getting the advantage because man, that DPS line is pretty darn potent. Torb Widow meta coming at you. Yes.
No, that's not insane. Don't you wish that upon anyone?
I do wish that if they came out on a with Torb and Widowmaker, that'd be amazing.
And their opposition would be like, "What the heck is this?" And then just completely steamroll them.
Or they wouldn't know what to do, and then
I don't see that happening.
it could happen.
But anyways, yesterday, we had the first matches of the season. So Ed, what went down Tuesday night in Contenders North America?
Okay, so the first match, we had 3 matches. The first match of the night was Atlanta Academy defeated the Mayhem Academy 3-1. And then First Generation, or the original Goats, they just rebranded themselves First Generation, defeated Kongarna 3-1. And then the final match of the night, we had Fusion Uprising Academy 3-2, because Lord knows Fusion University can not go a series without 5 maps. It's kind of like their
yeah, it's an MO that they share with the Philadelphia Fusion.
It's like death taxes,
right.
Fusion University, and 5.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's just how it goes.
Right. So I have one question for you in regards to First Generation. Like, we know what meta we're in. Did they rebrand solely because if they kept their name, it would, 1, not only confuse the announcers, but 2, bring them even more disdain because of the community and the meta that we're in?
I'm going out on a limb here and say Overwatch made them change it. Like, I can honestly think, like, Overwatch League they're like, listen, we understand you guys came up with the first team to populate Goats. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, it's kind of why it's called Goats. But we can't have the meta the same name as a team. It's like having, like, your contenders dive comp. Like, it just doesn't work. So I could see Overwatch actually stepping, making them change the name. If they didn't, it's strictly so people didn't hate them. Because, I mean, I automatically am not a fan of this team because they started Goats.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. I think Overwatch stepped in, though. I mean, they told Toronto Esports they couldn't use Toronto. I could see them making another team. It's just less because Goats didn't go to Twitter about quit.
Well, I mean, they also weren't calling out any Overwatch League teams either. But that's besides the point. So, as I mentioned, the games are Tuesdays and Wednesdays. On today, Wednesday, kicking things off late after, well, technically early evening for Central Time. So at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, which this game is already wrapped up. I'm not going to ruin the result because we'll probably talk about that next week. I don't know. But we have Second Wind facing Gladiators Legion. At 5:45 p.m. Pacific Time, we have Energy Esports going up against Sky Foxes. And then the late game, which should be a damn good one, at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, we have XL2 Academy going up against Team Envy. And I'm excited about that one. I'm definitely staying up for that. I want to see my boy Crimzo just fragging out on that Zenyatta roll, as he typically does. That's just going to happen. And I am anxious to see the new look XL2 and see how they do in this meta. Because, they won't have the hard NA carry that they had last season, so, there's a little bit of unknown with XL2 Academy, which I'm anxious to find out. But we are here tonight to break down Atlanta, or LNL, going up against Mayhem Academy. So, kind of like going into contenders, both of us felt pretty good about Mayhem in regards to the additions that they made to their roster.
Mm-hmm.
We felt like, what? This team could end up being better than the Florida Mayhem.
The Florida Mayhem from the beginning of last year.
Yes.
Not the Florida Mayhem of now.
Yeah, not the Florida Mayhem plus Saya player, before Saya player, pre-Saya player Mayhem,
yeah.
To be precise.
PSP? Yeah, PSP.
Yeah. So we opened up on Busan. This one went all 3 rounds. And Atlanta come out running your favorite composition in the world. Triple tank, triple support. And the Mayhem, they opt to go anti-goats. They bring out the Sombra, they bring out the Pharah, and Shax is the one playing the Pharah, gets that early poke damage early on, and Doggone is the first to fall. And I know you have a fantastic statistic about that and the series, which you're going to bring up at some point, but but hold it for now. Like, this will not be the first time that we're going to bring this up.
I threw out my notes throughout the entire series. I just have written down
every time it happened. Every time it happened, he made a tally.
Yes,
yeah.
I made a tally, and I counted how many times Dogman was the first to die in a team fight. So you'll hear a lot of Dogman dead again.
Mm-hmm. So Mayhem, they take the first capture. They're getting a lot of pressure from the Sombra. They shut Atlanta down, which forces swaps from Atlanta. Saucy ends up moving over to the McCree to try to deal with Shax and his Pharah. And Shax comes in with the barrage, finds 3, which was over the top, which allows Mayhem to actually keep their EMP. So for the next fight, Apply comes in, he drops the EMP, and it's easy cleanup for Mayhem Academy. And they end up taking the round to 100-10. And they just ended it with the Graviton Barrage Wombo combo. So round 2, it brings us to Mecha Base, and no surprise, it's mere Goats battle. Goats on one side, Goats on the other. Who's gonna come out on top? Not the audience. That's besides the point. So we see Hawk dive in. He ends up finding 2, as Fact Fiction got chunked down early on in the fight, giving Atlanta the first capture. And then there's this very, brawly, prolonged fight that happens where the teams are trading evenly, which ends up going in Atlanta's favor. So they're able to build a lot of percentage on the point here. Manitin ends up finding Saucy with a Graviton Surge Bomb combination, which sets up the point flip for the Mayhem at 83%. And at this point, this is where Fact Fiction turns up the aggression, but he ends up getting answered by Atlanta. Hawk is getting the value picks, which allows Atlanta to just snowball the fight, and then he just closes out the round with an absolutely massive 4K self-destruct to tie up the map. So it's 1 round apiece between these 2 teams, and, Hawk, this is a player that has had very good show wins in some other major tournaments in the Tier 2 scene that doesn't have contenders experience, and he showed up. I'm really excited to see how he continues to do on this lineup.
100%. Hawk is probably the MVP of this series for me. Just his play. I didn't know anything about Hawk coming into this, and I left this match Hawk
it was basically a moment of, where the hell did this guy come from?
Right? In that fight, when you were talking about Fact Fiction getting a little bit more aggressive, I just wanted to point something out with that. Is there's the point when he started to get aggressive, he got booped behind, kind of behind. They're fighting in a hallway, and got booped behind and to the side of them. And initially looking at it, he had his shatter up, and you're behind the line, so you can't get blocked by Reinhardt's shield for his shatter. So he instantly hit Q and shattered. Now, the problem with that is he didn't realize the team wasn't there to finish it up. Right. So he got 3, 4 people down with his shatter, but no one died. He had it. It's just he kind of wasted it because he saw in the moment that, okay, I'm behind them. I can take down all these people, but he didn't take that split second to realize none of his team was around. And I think that was kind of the flipping point of that map, like where, okay, good shatter, but bad awareness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really ended up snowballing from that point. So
it really did.
Round 3 would bring us to the downtown area of Busan, and Shax brings out the Widow for Mayhem Academy. And he's going up against Skater, who is on the Winston, so he gets pressured down in Doggone early on. Sugar Free, he's in Brigida jail on this map, but he channels his inner Genji, and he just cuts through everyone. It's a bunch of maces to a bunch of faces, gets a 3k on the point, which opens it up for Atlanta to get that first capture, which, of course, on Control is absolutely massive, especially running triple tank, triple support. So what does Atlanta do? They turn up the aggression off Sugar Free's rally. Fact Fiction's Shatter comes in when the fight was already lost. So another one of those situations where awareness, a little bit of an issue there. We see the Graviton Bomb combination getting an early pickoff for Atlanta, and the dive comes in, just bringing an easy cleanup for Atlanta. Apply comes in for the barrage, but that gets mitigated by Hawk's defense matrix, and Mayhem end up getting shut out in the downtown round. So the first map goes 2-1 in favor of Atlanta Academy. And, you know, we are huge fans of Sugar Free, and I know you and I both had the same experience when we saw he was on Brigida duty. It was just...
such
damn
a
it.
waste.
Right?
It's such a waste. No, I get it. Like, I mean, so you have Saucy was on Zarya, and Saucy is surprisingly another person I didn't know much about.
Mm-hmm.
He impressed me as well with his Zarya play. But so he's a Zarya, and your DPS players are basically always going to be, when you run goats, always going to be Bigat and Zarya. That's just how it always is. So if Saucy is a better Zarya, then by default Sugar Free has to be Baguette. Now with this third map, the Widow pick was baffling to me. Like, you know they're running goats because that's legit all they're running. Like, it's going to be a constant theme, except for one point in one map they ran goats. A Widowmaker versus goats is not a good counter.
Nope.
Why would you knowingly go into it? And then they didn't switch off Widow right away. Now, they did eventually switch off, but then they switched to Hanzo. Still not the best. Like,
right.
You had Shax on Hanzo, and then you had Apply on Pharah. Why did you not switch back to what you were doing in map 1, where you had Shax on Pharah and then Apply on Sombra? Shax proved that he's a better Pharah. Applies a good Sombra, a very good Sombra, and you can see it throughout all these matches. Apply was always on Sombra after this, but in this first one they had it flipped, and that baffled me. That they didn't make that switch when Shax was switching off of Widowmaker to Hanzo. You have Apply switch off and go to Sombra, and then you go anti-goats. But no, they didn't really go true anti-goats. They just went Hanzo to bust shields, and then Pharah, who, you know, Hawk was kind of, he learned his lesson, and you see this throughout. He learned his lesson on map 1. He didn't take care of the Pharah because it's D.Va's job. After that, he took care of the Pharah and negated it. So there was some weird switching on the side of the Mayhem, as well as some really bad ult usage by Fact Fiction throughout the entire Busan map. So it's, Atlanta was sloppy through all of this, but they pulled away with the win because of just bad counterplay by Mayhem.
They did, and this would lead us to Numbani for map 2. So Mayhem were on the attack first, and Atlanta is looking to take the fight early. They have a very aggressive defense position here, and, you know, Mayhem just react. They end up going to Pharah Hanzo dive on their attack. So Atlanta are looking to engage the backline. and Mayhem end up getting a tick for free here. Fact Fiction dives Dogman, and Sugar Free isn't there to protect him because Sugar Free is on the point here. So Dogman ends up dying first. Comedy.
Check mark.
And Mayhem end up getting the first point pretty cleanly. Yep. They basically just cruise all the way through the streets phase, and they're just grinding Atlanta down. And then for the third point, we see Mayhem swap the triple tank, triple support for that final point. And Atlanta's defense is finally able to stabilize after they find the support line, dropping 2 of the supports. So this is where Atlanta's defense starts to play the corners a lot more, which is really important for GOATs. So like Zarya is able to chunk down with the alternate fire, lobbing the splash damage out, getting a lot of poke damage there. And they end up getting a grab bomb combo, which snowballs the fight for Atlanta. Fact Fiction does come back for the next fight, drops an absolutely massive shatter, which ends up dropping 5 on the ground. And the Mayhem look to hold the spawn doors at this point. So, they're right outside. They're kind of split like 2 and 2. So you got 2 covering one door, 2 covering the other. And Saucy comes in on the backside with a Graviton Surge. He ends up demeching Manitin. And Hawk comes in over the top and drops a Diva Bomb, which ends in the 5k. Team wipe. Boom.
Second
Just
5k.
Massive. So, Manitin's like, okay, like, that was pretty good. He's going to try to one-up him. I mean, he got a pretty good bomb of his own. It wasn't a 5k, mind you, but it was a 3k. Fact Fiction ends up dropping the hammer. And Mayhem handle the respawns and end up completing the map in overtime. So that worked out. Completing the map is always a good sign. It kind of sucks that it was in overtime. But that didn't really come into play because their defense did phenomenal. So on Atlanta's attack, Mayhem are opting to run Soldier 76. This is pretty common on Numbani just due to the high ground. Epps ends up finding Dogman early. Zenyatta v Zenyatta.
Dead again. Dogman's dead.
Yeah. And that just happens because he just runs into sightlines, basically. Like, he peeks, gets domed. Like, no, don't Dogman, like, stay behind your tanks. Then it wouldn't happen. So, Atlanta sent back to spawn. Gator ends up jumping to high ground here, and since they are doing a high ground defense, what do? They basically just back up, right? Like, around that, like, curve.
Yeah, and Gator's throws his hands up.
Yeah, Gator's just like,
I have to go back. So Gator, the dive that they did, Gator was just like, no, I'll bypass this. Mm-hmm. Well, you can't really stop dive after the dive.
Right.
But that's what Gator did.
Yeah, he's like he pops up, he is like, oh, I can't actually trickle anyone down with my Tesla cannon. I guess I'll backpedal onto the point, and then he just gets deleted, basically. So
well, no. Do you know who died first?
You're going to tell me. I'm not even going to guess.
Dogman. So he did the crap jump by Gator. Dogman actually died first, and then Gator died.
Then Gator died. So in that moment, Atlanta looking a little scatterbrained. Shax ends up earning a quick EMP, and Atlanta says, you know what? The dive goats is not working. Let's go for something more static, something more on the ground. So they swap out Winston for the Reinhardt. Traditional triple tank, triple support here. So we'll apply with the EMP. He turns off the lights. And Mayhem doesn't really have to invest all that much. They still have 4 ultimates at their disposal for the next fight. And then this is where Shax comes into play on the 76. Because he's under absolutely zero pressure from the opposition at all. Atlanta's not even looking at him. It's just a shooting gallery for a 76 play. So Atlanta, they have 30 seconds left. They rally up, and Dogman, he gets taken out of the fight. He's dead. And Atlanta just do not have the time to regroup to make for another attempt, and Mayhem tie up the series going into halftime. That was rough. I don't know if it's just the fact that Gator just didn't know what to do in the situation because there just wasn't anyone him to poke around, but I mean, Dogman got punished for it, and Dogman got punished a lot in this map especially.
He did. The problem here is point A is an atrocious goats like point. Like running goats into Numbani point A is bad idea. It just really is because of the height advantage and all that stuff. It just doesn't work. It's one of the few points or attack points where it's like they can all be above you and you can't do anything.
It basically it puts you in a position of, like, you can run it, but you have to take the high ground. Like, you can't just go like, okay, we're just gonna go straight to the point. Like, you have to do the wraparound in this situation, basically.
Yeah, you have to do the wraparound. You take that balcony there, and then, but even when you're up there, you have to drop down onto the point at some point to take the point. And once you do that, if they're positioned properly, kind of like Shax was on Soldier, they get on point and he can just make life a living hell. And that's what he did, because there's no way. The only way that Soldier could have been stopped is if Hawk peeled off the rest of the team and went up to deal with him, which he probably should have done. But if he does that, then he leaves his team hanging.
And Dogman would have died.
And Dogman would have died. Like, I'm wondering, like, the timer-wise, did Dogman spend more time on the point or in the spawn area? Like,
that's a good question.
Yeah, I'm not going to do the math, but somebody should. But yeah, it's just a crap goats comp, like, attack. Like, you just the zero switching, true switching, like switching from Winston to Reinhardt, I don't think it's true switching. They needed to switch completely off goats. And the lack of goats switching and just the crappy positioning by Atlanta throughout all of Numbani really spelled their doom.
Yeah, I wanted to see them unleash Sugar Free on the Genji on this map on their attack. That's what I want. That's the change I wanted to see. We did not get that, unfortunately.
No, we didn't. Other thing I want to point out is you talked about when Mayhem was on attack and Fact Fiction got a huge shatter. So I actually wrote down the list of the ultimates used for that, because it was like his ultimate, his shatter was like the end of an ult marathon. So it started off Shax Graviton, Maniton Diva Bomb, Gator Counter Shatter, Paintbrush drops the beat, Dogman used Transcendence, and then right at the end of that, that's when Fact Fiction hit his shatter. So like all of that happened all in a matter of 5 seconds, 6 seconds, and then all of a sudden Fact Fiction's like, yeah, but you still have to worry about me. And that was like one of the, I can't believe they didn't finish the fight, but Hawk hit him after that. So, but it's just, that whole scene was one of the best, like, 10, 20 seconds of the entire map.
So this would lead us to 2CP LOL on map 3. Went to Horizon Lunar Colony, and, you know, Sugar Free, he was freed from Brigida jail. He was on defense, playing Junkrat, which is pretty common. You know, we see a lot of the Orisa Junkrat, like, Widow-type setup on Horizon Lunar Colony defense. Mayhem, they opt to run a triple dive tank with Solo Heal Mercy, with Apply and Shax basically running dive DPS. So they got Sombra, they got Tracer, and I love this composition. I thought it was fantastic. So basically, Dogman, he gets isolated early. He dies first. And then Shax comes in on the Tracer, and he just cuts through everyone. He gets like a 3k in a matter of like a second and a half, basically. Everyone just gets deleted off the map. So Mayhem, they quickly take point A. They have 6:45 left on a clock. You're like, okay, this has a very good snowball potential. And then Shax ends up overextended. He gets punished by Sugar Free, and that's enough to send Mayhem packing. Atlanta end up chasing at this point. They push Mayhem all the way back to spawn, so at least they stabilize here. So Shax, he comes in, he makes the change, he goes over to McCree, so he's going to be looking to get pocketed here. And Mayhem use ults early, but the later ults win the fight for Atlanta, which prompts more changes from Mayhem. They go back to triple tank, triple support. Mayhem end up losing their rally, because they don't initiate the fight. Like, which was... like, that was a moment of hesitation, and they... Like, there's no other way to describe it. They completely shit the bed in that moment. But defense-wise, Atlanta, like, they were holding it down. Manhattan gets focused early on. They end up getting pulled off the point with the Graviton Surge. And Mayhem don't even get a tick on point B despite having 6:45 left on the clock. So very solid point B defense put up there. So Atlanta, all they need is one tick. You know, they tease go and dive early on. Like, I knew that wasn't going to happen. Like, there's no way. As much as you want to see it happen, never going to happen. They just need one tick. You can just bulldoze around the point with triple tank, triple sport, which is what they do. They do the wraparound. They get the positional advantage on the point. And end up getting, you know, 2 ticks for free here. Fact Fiction ends up getting poked down, and the front line is gone, which gives Atlanta point A. And Apply, you know, he's on the Sombra. He hits an early EMP, which ends up preventing the snowball on point B. Gator ends up getting a pretty big shatter, which forces Manhattan out of his mech. And Atlanta are able to take that fight after a Diva Bomb and a pin that followed through with that, and they end up taking the map. So, pretty clean attack for Atlanta. Maybe an even better defense, considering the overall time frame, but, like, seeing a very long stall on point B isn't unprecedented on defense, because we have seen it in the past, but it's always great to see, just knowing that they were able to prevent that snowball, which is so prominent on assault maps.
Yeah, it was. The surprising to me, the lack of... So, Atlanta on attack switched to goats. They came out, they switched back to goats. I don't get why Mayhem didn't go goats. Like, this is like the point for goats. Like, and Atlanta running goats was, it kind of proved that. Like, they just basically walked right on, and there was nothing the Mayhem could do. I don't get why Mayhem didn't go goats from the get-go, because this is one of the best goats maps out there. And I hate to say that, but it's just a smart move. And I think that was just bad decision making on the Mayhem's part. I think Atlanta, when they first came out, I think they were expecting almost when they came out on attack, they were expecting Goats defense from Mayhem, and they were going anti-Goats with Sombra, you know, stuff like that. And once they realized they weren't doing that, they're like, okay, we got to switch. Let's go back to Goats. And it worked out well for them, and they just walked straight on the point, and Mayhem couldn't even touch them. They couldn't get on point, because if the second Hanzo or Mercy or anyone like that tried to step foot on point, they would just get melted. It was just a smart thing to do. Dogman switched back and forth between Moira. Interesting to me, because this is generally a more Moira map. So he switched after he died on point B. He switched back to Zen. So it's one of those things where there's interesting switches on both parts, and then again, bad ult usage on the side of the Mayhem. They were just not using that. One other thing that stuck out to me, and stuck out to me with Numbani too, and this goes back to me saying that Atlanta is a little bit unrefined and needs a little bit more professional coaching. They tend to spawn camp a little too heavy. I've noticed, like, you saw it on Numbani when they were right on the spawn, right on the doors. They did the exact same thing on Horizon. They would go basically up to where point A is, but after they've captured it, and like would try and hold them there. And I'm like, that is just asking for trouble. Now, it didn't bite them in the ass too bad this time, but all it takes is for them to get one pick, and then they can just steamroll you.
Well, okay, so part of that is the fact that it still gives them enough time on the defense to actually have another engage, because for the most part on Numbani, that streets phase is pretty much a done deal. So they're just trying to get a little bit extra stall out of that in particular.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. It's just so many bad things can come from that.
Mm-hmm.
That I think the best way I can put it is in football. Going for it on 4th and 1, statistically, you're going to get first down more often than not. But there's a reason everyone always punts on 4th down. Because the bad, like not getting that first down, the few times is so much worse than getting the first down more often than not. More often than not, when you spawn camp, you're going to stop them in their tracks. And then you can fall back, but you can cause a little bit more of a delay. But that every few times that that they kill one or two of your guys, and then you can steamroll them, that is so dramatically bad for your team that it's almost not worth it. And I guess that might be just a different fee that I have with that. It's just I don't think it's worth the risk.
Yeah, so we would close out the series on Dorado. Mayhem were on the attack first. Atlanta is running Dive Goats on defense. Apply is back on Farah for the Mayhem. And he hits a direct rocket, damage boosted, onto Dogman.
Dead again.
And Atlanta just, they dive back on the cart. So Apply comes in, drops a barrage, but Gator, he has a primal, which ends up giving Atlanta the man advantage. Hawk launches his bomb in the air. He drops Paintbrush out of the sky, so Mercy gone. And Shax looks to answer with a Dragon Strike, and does as Dogman and his Transcendence just comes in just a little bit too late.
Because it was coming from spawn, probably.
It could have been. But this is where, Hawk continues to get value. So he eats a Graviton Surge. Fact Fiction gets dropped. And Saucy ends up cutting through Atlanta with the Zarya beams. But, Mayhem, they're just not able to get to the first checkpoint on their attack. So
yeah, it was kind of crazy that they didn't even just over halfway, basically.
So on the other side, Atlanta were on the attack. Shax opens things up by killing none other than Dogman. So he just gets cut out again with the damage boosted to rockets. And Shax earns an early barrage, which ends up finding 2 kills. But he does end up falling for it, but the resurrect is there from Paintbrush. Atlanta have to rally out of the gate. They were having some issues there for a while. And Apply ends up getting dropped. And it's a scrappy fight between both sides. And Sugar Free ends up getting a key pick onto Paintbrush. So Apply, he comes in with the EMP, and Mayhem start to bring the fight back, and we're down to 30 seconds left, and Atlanta and Sugar Free, they rally up. Shax ends up getting dropped by Sugar Free, and Atlanta, they are just swarming the cart at this point. Gator dives in, ends up finding the support line with, a 2K, and Atlanta are able to close out the series and take it 3-1. So a pretty good showing for Atlanta overall. There's still a lot of things that, Atlanta needs to work on. And, that's going to come in time. But, like other notes overall for the series, I like that Mayhem were given different looks. We gotta see anti-goats. We gotta see goats. Alt management is probably the biggest question mark right now. But I like that we just didn't see one thing played by the Mayhem, which is good to see. I feel like their anti-goats is pretty good, but they're not going to be in a position where anti-goats is going to be ran over goats in a majority of the maps in this map pool. So all in all, I'm excited to see how Atlanta improves as the season goes along. And we also had a couple other matches. So do you have any final thoughts in regards to this match or the other 2 matches that took place yesterday?
All right. One thing, my tally for Dogman.
Okay.
10. He died first in team fights 10 times. That's insane. Okay.
So if I math really quick.
Yes.
Okay. that's 4 maps.
Mm-hmm.
10 deaths. Okay, so that's two,
Not just 10 deaths, 10 first-person deaths.
two and a half per map.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's real bad. Just a very quick couple of other things. The first generation versus Kongarna. It was funny. The first map, goats, or first generation. First map did not run goats.
Anti-goats, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. The new casters that they brought in, Boop and Ham Tornado, are possibly my favorite announcers because they coined the phrase, "That is one fatty shatty." Yes. Fat Shatter is now Fatty Shatty.
Yeah, that's that's actually been a common key phrase.
I don't hear
both
any
here
of
and
the
in
announcers.
Europe.
So I'm in love with them for that. Nomi. For first generation, looked better than Fissure on Reinhardt. His Reinhardt was basically his shadow was on cooldown every 30 seconds. It was insane. Disconnects are a huge issue. I think we had 2 disconnects, 2 or 3 in first generation versus Kongarna, and then in the Fusion University and Uprising, disconnects and high ping rates was a massive issue.
Well, there was a reason for that, which I'll get into.
For Fusion University Rising, the Snillo, and it was nice. We got to see a Widow versus Widow battle, which was very nice change of play. Kraken for the Uprising did not look good. I was not a fan of that. Other than that, Snillo looked really good. Asking looked really good. But yeah, what did you think of the other 2 matches?
Well, I only watched part of First Generation and Kongarna, primarily because, one, I don't like either team. I'm just gonna flat out say it. I'm not a fan of either roster, outside of, like, maybe one player. But, like, I knew what to kind of expect. Like, I fully expected Kongarna to basically just get shat on, which basically happened. I mean, it was 3-1, sure. It wasn't a 4-0 like I thought it would be, but I don't think Kongarna is there yet, despite what Kane Michael might say. But just a quick couple of notes on the Fusion Uni versus Uprising Academy match. One, Uprising Academy, they have signed Klaus, who is a DPS player from South America. He played on Brazil Gaming House, who are now known under Base Tryhards, which I actually absolutely love. So quick news bit here. So Brazil Gaming House, they parted ways with this team. So this team is orgless, but Brazil Gaming House gave them the contender spot. They didn't have to do that, but this is a team that won back-to-back championships in that region, and since they aren't contracted, it kind of like frees them up to trial for these other teams, and now Klaus is getting to see play in North America. Well, in North America contenders. He's still in South America, playing on like 300 MS pain. But he was still looking pretty good overall, so I'm happy to see South America players getting opportunities, because it's long overdue. But when I look at Fusion Uni, like, Alarm, absolute monster, as expected still, getting a ton of cleanup. He was getting transcendences in vital situations, which kept Fusion Uni in a lot of these fights. I loved Uprising bringing back the Widowmaker Tracer dive on Busan, which was played on the downtown area. And we even got to see Klaus play Tracer and get some pretty good cleanup against triple tank, triple support, despite, having to deal with the Brigitte and the Diva. So that was pretty cool. So all in all, like, the Uprising Academy, they really surprised me. Fusion University were put to the test. They still came out on top. But all in all, like, I expected Fusion Uni to be good. So I'm curious to see, like, where do they go from here? Like, are they going to keep winning? Are they going to have a perfect group stage? Are they going to make the deep runs? Can they close out a series in under 5 maps? I don't know. But, as of right now, like, with some of these other teams, the skill gap is pretty narrow. So, with a lot of these new academy teams, like, I don't know who to favor in the situation of Uprising and Atlanta. So there's quite a bit of unknown certainty right now for NA as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know how. We're going to see, I think, after next week, matches, kind of see where the chips are going to fall. Like, who's for real, who's pretenders, stuff like that. It'll be interesting to see that. So, I'm excited.
So, with that being said, I know we're running long. Let's close out the show for tonight. So if you guys want to help us out, the best way to do that is to just go over to iTunes, leave us a review, click that on that 5th star, the one all the way to the right. And then, say something incredibly nice to us. We encourage that. Just, let us know how we're doing. Let us know how we can improve the show. If you guys want us to, maybe talk about a specific topic, any recommendations like that, let us know. We are always open ears. We have Overwatch Recall. We have our, Overwatch podcast directory. All of the episode listens are posted Sunday nights of all the Overwatch content out there in podcast form. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for more interviews on that podcast feed. But Ed, we have a number of ways to get a hold of us. So why don't you let our listeners and viewers know where they can reach us at?
All right. Well, you can reach us on email at gmail.com. You can reach us on Twitter at HND Overwatch. We do have our website as WLNshow.com. We are presently streaming right now on Twitch at twitch.tv/show. We are a Twitch affiliate, so you can support the show by subscribing to our Twitch channel and unlock our net emoticon. So thanks again to everyone who's been watching live and in chat. If you'd like to catch us live, we broadcast 2 nights a week. So Overwatch League Network is Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific, and then Heroes Never Die. This show is on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific, and then host streams are generally held Thursdays and Fridays at 7:30 p.m. Pacific, which probably should stick around once Overwatch League starts. Knows. You can talk to us on Discord at discord.me/OWLN show. And then we do have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/Overwatch League Network, where wonderful Spider just released a 4-minute video on Ash. By 4-minute video. But he goes in depth about ways to use Ash when not that. So I definitely recommend going there, checking it out. You can reach me personally on Twitter at @EdinarWatch. Totem, where can they find you on the Twitter sphere?
Well, I am on the Twitter sphere, as you call it, at Totally_Drunk_CTR. And with that being said, guys, I know we have breaking news from one of the Chinese expander teams. We're not going to get into it. We're going to save some of the Chengdu roster announcements, which they announced 3 players, for next show. So if you're curious about it, just go on their Twitter. You can read all about it. We'll cover it next week. But we will see you back on Monday for our next edition of Overwatch League Network. Guys, have a good night.
Thank you for listening to Heroes Never Die. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at HND Overwatch and join us on Discord at discord.me/OWLN show.